Ladies and gentlemen, fight fans all around the world, before we talk some boxing, I want to give all my allegiance, credit, and love and thanks to the one and only Jesus Christ, who is the way, the truth, and the life. Because, guys, I owe to Jesus that I'm here today. I don't think you guys understand. Been suffering with some stomach problems for a little while now, and it's been really bad, and it's Jesus who's helping me to get healed. This is my testimony right now. And I want to tell you guys something, man. Serious talk. If you're in some sort of situation, whether it's you're sick, whether it is you have financial problems, whether it is the government's looking to kick you out of their country, etc., I dare you today to ask Jesus to provide the way, to give you the truth of the situation, and to breathe life into your life. I challenge you to receive Jesus in your life. Just ask him right now, right here and now. Jesus, just could you be part of my life and transform it? That's all you got to ask. Nothing else. If you really believe that, he'll lead you. Don't doubt nothing that happens to you. What is to be will be. The Lord directs your paths. Ask him to direct your life right now. That's it. I'm not even asking you to ask him for forgiveness of sins, all that. Not just ask him to direct your life right now. Holy Spirit will handle everything else. Serious talk. He's coming again. He's coming to take his own. And I want you to be one of them. Let's get into the boxing. De La Hoya said that Mayweather McGregor is disrespectful to boxing, according to Edward Tchaikovsky on BoxingScene.com. According to De La Hoya, he elaborates by saying that the fight of Conor McGregor with Floyd Mayweather is a circus, and that fight will never happen. He says, I think it'll be a disrespect to the sport of boxing if it happens. Just like Canelo said, I think they're just totally different sports. MMA fighters should stick to the octagon and fighters should stick to boxing. That's just the bottom line, De La Hoya told 120 Sports. I can't see a boxer trying to get into the octagon and be successful. It'd just be impossible, so there's no way this fight will happen. Now, Oscar De La Hoya speaking there seems a bit hypocritical. Maybe he was just trying to get headlines and attention based on the fact that his magazine, The Ring, which he owns, had this on its cover of Very Late in 2015. Ronda Rousey. She conquered MMA. Is boxing next? I don't know if Oscar De La Hoya remembers that. And why that's hypocritical is because he's saying that Conor McGregor fighting Floyd Mayweather is all of a sudden a circus and it's disrespectful to the sport of boxing. In fact, Canelo went on to say it's a joke and a black eye to boxing if that fight is allowed to go forward. And I'm thinking, so when Ronda Rousey was all hot and you guys were putting a UFC fighter on a boxing magazine, that wasn't disrespectful to boxing, right? No, that was a great idea, Oscar. You know, and Oscar was defending that until Ronda Rousey got knocked out by who? Holly Holm. It just so happens that Oscar De La Hoya forgot that Holly Holm, her background was in boxing. So here's Oscar now saying, I can't see a boxer trying to go into the octagon and be successful. It'd just be impossible. Maybe for James Toney, maybe for Ricardo Mayorga, but not for Holly Holm. For those of you who don't know, Holly Holm, she defeated Ronda Rousey by a second-round knockout to win the UFC Women's Bantamweight title in Melbourne, Australia on November 14, 2015. After Ronda Rousey was elected by ESPN the Fighter of the Year, ahead of Floyd Mayweather, who had just beaten Manny Pacquiao, right? Holly Holm became the first person, man or woman, to win the world titles in boxing and UFC. ESPN.com reported Holly Holm's stunning victory over previously unbeaten Ronda Rousey was not only the biggest upset in UFC history, it was one of the biggest upsets in sports history. So she was the first person, man or woman, to win world titles in boxing and UFC. We'll look into that in a minute. I'll show you. And on top of that, it was the biggest upset, almost the biggest upset in sports history, according to them. Now, just so you guys can see who Holly Holm is. Holly Holm here, she's a southpaw fighter. in boxing. This is BoxRec. And you can see that she was a WBA and WBC unified champion. In the women's boxing, I think the IBF was there as well. She was almost an undisputed champion at welterweight. Okay? She had the WBC and WBA titles. She defended her WBC title here in 2008. 2007, she became the WBC WBA champion, beating Ann Sakurato. Okay? Now, my point is this. Oscar De La Hoya is wrong on two occasions. He says that with Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor, that's a disrespect to the sport of boxing, where it is not a disrespect to the sport of boxing, seeing that Oscar's ring set precedent by having a UFC fighter on a boxing cover and then talking about her wanting to become a person who will conquer boxing. It's not disrespectful. You set the precedent, Oscar. The second point being that he was wrong again about about boxers going into the octagon and never being successful, as Holly Holm proved that she was able to do that, being the first person to win world titles in boxing and UFC, in MMA and in boxing, in the octagon and in the ring. Okay? So he's wrong on both occasions. And here's the other funny thing. He must have a short memory span, because Roy Jones Jr. had always been eager to fight Anderson Silva. While Anderson Silva was at the top of his game in UFC, Roy Jones Jr. wanted to fight him. Dana White prevented that from happening. It's called crossover fighting. You have a guy with boxing style, you have a guy with mixed martial arts, and they were trying to make the fight happen. Roy Jones Jr. and Anderson Silva were trying to make it happen. It wasn't a disgrace to boxing then, so how can it be a disgrace to boxing now that a boxer wants to make a fight with a UFC fighter on boxing terms? Why is that now a problem? Okay? Add to the fact that Roy Jones Jr., according to Rolling Stone, wants to co-headline the Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather fight, if it happens, by facing Anderson Silva. As you can see here, Rolling Stone puts that out. And to me, once these are not fights which are, how do we call it, certified boxing fights, that is to say, they're not sanctioned by any sanctioning body, I'm cool with these fights. Because these fights are intriguing in the sense that I always wanted to know, I just wanted to see somebody like Anderson Silva face a dominant fighter in MMA at the time, face Roy Jones Jr., who was a dominant fighter in boxing. Why not? Under boxing rules, why not? We have boxers that went across and did it under UFC rules. So why can't a UFC fighter or an MMA fighter go across the boxing and do it under boxing rules, especially if they're pretty good at boxing? I don't have a problem with that. I just don't want it commissioned. I don't want it to be recorded as an official fight. But other than that, absolutely. That's something that a lot of people like to see, crossover things. So I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Roy Jones facing Anderson Silva. I don't have a problem with Floyd Mayweather facing Conor McGregor if it's a crossover or something. Whether it's an exhibition fight or a fight, real fight which brings crowds together, people to see what would happen. Sure. Floyd keeps his 49-0 record. Roy keeps his record. Conor McGregor keeps his record in UFC as it is, and that's that. If they want to do official fight, even if it's a sanctioned fight, again, I can't be mad about it. I don't know which sanctioning body would sanction it, but if it's a sanctioned fight, then you can't be mad at it, because James Toney went across the UFC. Okay, he wasn't sanctioned. He got his tail whooped, and so did Ricardo Mayorga, but they won some fights too. And then you look at Holly Holm, she goes into a sanctioned fight in the UFC and she beats Ronda Rousey. Of course, she was working on her MMA for a while though. But the point is, and she worked her way up, but the point is that she did it, right? So you can't be mad even if it's a sanctioned bout, even though I prefer it not be a sanctioned bout, because these guys have never professionally boxed. So I would prefer it to be some kind of special sort of event that happens where we see what happens, right? You could call it an exhibition bout. I don't want it to be an exhibition bout because I think people don't take that too seriously. But here's what these guys bring to the table, the UFC fighters, the MMA fighters, that people don't factor in. there's a certain degree of movement and certain things they can do and bring to the table that still conform to boxing rules, but at the same time are so unconventional because they are able to do different techniques and different things that boxers never really thought about doing. So there's a certain degree of unpredictability because these guys, like for instance, a boxer may clinch you up, but since these guys know how to grapple, they may be able to grapple you differently and make that boxer uncomfortable in the clinch and then get some punches in or get some, pushes in or some locks in. You understand what I'm saying? So there are different things and subtle things that these MMA fighters could do to these boxers that people haven't really been thinking about. They've just been thinking of it straight up a boxing match in which everybody's playing clean to start with, and the boxing rules are kind of clean. But, grappling, these guys know how to grapple. So I'm just saying, people are not really thinking about that and how they can orient the positioning of a boxer, get him off balance, shift his center of gravity a bit, and then be able to do what they need to do. There's some unorthodox things they can do in there. Even blocking punches, they can block punches in some unorthodox ways and do things that people have not been thinking about because a UFC fighter is so used to doing so many different styles that they can work out a science of, oh yeah, I can do this and counteract that in a way that he never seen before. So I'm just saying that a lot of stuff that people are not thinking about, I don't think they're better boxers than boxers, but in terms of bringing something different and new to the table, I think that's where it gets interesting. So just the fact that these guys are at the top of their games or were at the top of their games makes those kinds of matchups interesting. In fact, I would have a whole entire card where just MMA fighters are fighting boxers in a boxing tournament. That would be just outstanding, and just see how the chips may lay based on that. So that's my little 2 cents on the whole matter. I think Oscar De La Hoya is wrong. I think he hasn't really thought the whole situation through. As a commissioned bout, it's not exactly something that people in boxing who know boxing would actually consider, even though I don't think they thought it all the way through. But as something which is an event, especially post Mayweather's retirement, I think, especially Mayweather being 40 years old, and McGregor is not, he's much younger than Mayweather. It would be very, very interesting to see. And then I think McGregor is actually longer than Mayweather. I think he's taller, and I think he has a much longer reach. I think 74-inch reach to Mayweather's 72. So there's a lot of things going on there that could work to McGregor's favor. I don't think he's as sharp a boxer as Mayweather. I don't think, when it comes to boxing, I think Mayweather is much quicker to adapt to things and can do a lot more things than McGregor can. But I think McGregor can bring in some sort of unpredictability and some different looks and some different things in there to Floyd if you really kind of incorporate some of his MMA fighting skills to boxing. And that's the point. Incorporate some of your MMA skills to boxing. Same thing for Anderson Silva. Incorporate some of your MMA skills to boxing. I think that unpredictability factor is what's selling to me. That's what's selling me this fight. I don't see McGregor necessarily knocking out Mayweather. Maybe he could. Who knows? He could be lucky. I don't know. But at the end of the day, neither does Anderson Silva, in my opinion, knock out Roy Jones Jr. Even though Roy Jones has been knocked out by a lot of people, I don't think Anderson Silva would. But he could get lucky, like I said. But what I see these two MMA fighters being able to do is bring something a little bit different to the table that a boxer doesn't really expect. And so that's where I think it gets interesting, in my opinion. So that's my take on it. I think De La Hoya was way off left field in terms of it being disrespectful to boxing. I think he's throwing shots where he shouldn't throw shots. I think people with glass houses shouldn't throw stones. That's just my personal opinion. Of course, you guys may have a different opinion. You guys have a great one.